From the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina, on the east coast of the United States, to the satellites above Earth and into your homes, your mobile devices, your computers, this is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera, and I do welcome all of you. Tonight, we have returning guests. They were on the show with us several months ago. Chad and Alta Dillard will be joining us. They've had UFO and ET encounters, so we're going to discuss that with them tonight. We'll take calls as well if you happen to have stories that you'd like to share or anything along those lines, comments, what have you. You're more than welcome to call in with us tonight, and we'll bring you on. But we'll take calls a little later on in the show. The website's www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Go on over, become a member, and be informed. By all means, though, inform others. Call-in number 803-317-2264, and that's listed up on our website at latenightinthemidlands.com. And I'd like to give a shout-out to our radio affiliates, all of you who are listening on the Dark Matter Radio Network. It's most likely Sunday for you. Please do not call in because it's recorded for you over on Dark Matter, but hello to you all. And K98 Talk, hello to you. And High Point Radio, the top of New Jersey, 100.5 FM and 1700 AM. They cover New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Airman wins payout over Rendlesham UFO. An American airman has received compensation after suffering radiation poisoning during the encounter. It's one of Britain's best-known UFO cases and one that still remains unexplained more than 20 years later. The incident occurred in December of 1980 at Rendlesham Forest in England, where a strange object appeared over multiple nights and was witnessed by several members of the military, including Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt, who famously recorded what was happening on audio tape while he and his men were investigating the craft. One of the airmen who was there at the time, however, John Burroughs, was exposed to too much radiation, and he later developed a heart problem and had to undergo surgery. Now, after being denied compensation for years, the U.S. Veterans Association has finally agreed to pay for his treatment, a move that has been hailed as an admission that UFOs can cause harm. I was not looking for anyone to believe me, he said. All I have been concerned about was getting care for my illness. That was all that mattered. So Burroughs and colleague Jim Penston had ventured much closer to the object than the other men in an effort to learn as much as possible about it. And, I don't blame them. I would have done the same thing. Pennington later described how it had been silver in color and noted that it had also been covered in strange symbols like holographics. It says that, I think this is the phenomenon the government is aware of, but we're still trying to work out what it is, said Burroughs. Well, anyways, this guy is going to get compensated for his UFO injury. How about that? That's linked up, by the way, under News and Discovery on latenightinthemidlands.com, where you'll find all of what I'm about to tell you about here, discussed with you. Earliest human species possibly found in Ethiopia. An ancient jawbone fragment is the oldest human fossil discovered yet, a bone potentially from a new species that reveals the human family may have arose a 500,000 years earlier than previously thought by researchers have said. They say that this find also sheds light on the kind of landscape where humans first originated, scientists added. Although modern humans are the only human lineage alive today, other human species once roamed the earth. These extinct lineages were members of the genus Homo, just a modern humans just as modern humans are. And this is also linked up under news and discovery. And now, it's still, no matter what they find or what they tell us they find, it's the stuff that they don't tell us about that I really want to know about. But interesting find, nevertheless. But, I think no matter how we started here, I think we get, our DNA gets altered every now and then, whether it be an ET alteration or stupid human alteration. You look at what's going on the planet now, all the chemicals and radiation. And by the way, I was in this group, this Coast group. Oh my goodness! And some of these trolls with they right out of the troll handbook. Oh, chemtrails aren't real, and then they try to give you this hogwash about how, well, my brother-in-law works in in the airport, and my other brother is part of the Air Force, and they work in this and that and the other thing, and they would know. And they just come up with as much bullcrap as they can. It's part of the troll playbook. It's amazing, but I'll tell you what, I have never met more sheep than I have in, say, a coast to coast chat or group or whatever it is. It's like these people are just. I'm sorry, but folks, there's help for you. Restless mind syndrome, we can cure it. We really can. But I had a guy trying to convince me that geoengineering is not real. When there's documents to prove it, I told him, I said, look, 101, that's over with. I'm not going to argue with you. You're a moron. I mean, it's the bottom line. Oh, you result in name calling. No, I've labeled you because, I've done the test and I know what you consist of, your compounds. You're 100% moron because this stuff is happening. Anyways, Obama amnesty to grant $1.7 billion in taxpayer cash to illegals. $1.7 billion in taxpayer cash to illegals. Here we go again. We've been talking about this one. As a matter of fact, tomorrow night, Stu and I will be talking about this very thing. President Barack Obama's November amnesty will give $1.7 billion in taxpayers' cash to illegal immigrants, according to a congressional study. The news emerged 2 days after top Republican leaders overcame GOP opposition to a 2015 budget bill that allows Obama to fund his unpopular amnesty for roughly 5 million illegals. The program could cost taxpayers $1.7 billion over 10 years, almost all of it in the first 5 years. And that's not counting the 40-some million dollars the Obamas have spent on travel last year. I mean, here I am driving down the road dodging potholes, and these guys are spending money like it's theirs. NASA finds evidence of a vast ancient ocean on Mars. A huge primitive ocean covered 1/5 of the red planet's surface, making it warm, wet, and ideal for alien life to gain a foothold, scientists said. A massive ancient ocean, they say, once covered nearly half of the northern hemisphere of Mars, making the planet a more promising place for alien life to have gained a foothold. NASA scientists have determined the huge body of water spread over 1/5 of the planet's surface, as great a portion as the Atlantic covers the Earth, and was a mile deep in places. In total, the ocean held 20 million cubic kilometers of water, or more than is found in the Arctic Ocean, the researchers found. Unveiled by NASA on Thursday, the compelling evidence for the primitive ocean adds to an emerging picture of Mars as a warm and wet world in its youth, which trickled with streams, dwindling rivers, and long-standing lakes soon after it formed, they say some 4.5 billion years ago. So, Mars had oceans. I'm sure Mars still has water on it, and who knows, there could be some kind of life roaming around up there. outside of the life that I think we're putting there. But, I know that's just a conspiracy theory, and really it is at this point because I can't prove it. But I'm pretty certain. I'm pretty certain that they've got some bases and they're already doing some things there. U.S. military satellite explodes above Earth. A U.S. military satellite exploded after detecting an unexplained sudden spike in temperature, sending dozens of chunks of debris tumbling into different orbits around Earth. Now, this is interesting. They say the U.S. military satellite exploded after detecting an unexplained sudden spike in temperature, sending dozens of chunks of debris tumbling into different civilian company. Cellstrack was the first to notice. So they sent this stuff tumbling all in different directions, and I don't know what this is here. There's a mistake here or something, but it says civilian company Cellstrack was first to notice the explosion of the once secret weather satellite, and the U.S. Air Force subsequently confirmed that it had been lost. All right, so yeah, we had a break in this, but okay, so this used to be a secret weather satellite that they had up there. The Air Force would use it, probably helped complete their geoengineering or whatever it is they're doing. The satellite was an aging component of the Defense Meteorological Satellite Program, which the U.S. military began developing in the 1960s to help plan reconnaissance of surveillance missions. In 1972, the system was declassified and data made available to civilian scientists. The lost satellite was the 13th to be launched as part of a DMSP designated DMSP F-13. So you'll have to look that up because I have no idea. I knew that they had. I said this a while back. I said they have a satellite technology that would affect the weather back in the 70s, but they're talking about the 60s here, so they had it even longer than that. So I thought it was the 70s. So there you go. It goes back further than that. They says that it's been in Earth orbit since 1995. Yeah, well, whatever. Personnel will continue to assess this event to learn more about what happened and what it will mean for users within this orbit. There is speculation that the power system may have failed, causing the explosion. Now, I know there's some out there that'll say, well, the ETs did it. Maybe they did. There's others out there that'll say Planet X changed the temperature of it, and that's what did it. Or, maybe we had another fireball that came in and hit it, and they're just not telling us. I don't know, but it has blown up. So I don't know. That's a good thing, or are they just trying to make us think that they don't have that weather satellite up there no more, or they put a better one up there and they didn't need this one anymore? I'm Michael Vera. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm going to take a break, and when I come back, I will have my guests with me, Chad and Alta Dillard. So, folks, hang in there with us, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. The L&M Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information and subscribe today. Information on becoming an L&M subscriber can be found at the top of LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of LateNightInTheMidlands.com and help us help you.
Hello, this is Dick Farrell, here to tell you about OxySilver. Legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. You've heard Dr. Leonard Horowitz and experts urge you to avoid deadly vaccinations and illegal operators selling stolen OxySilver and OxySilver copycats. You've heard experts tell you about suppression in alternative medicine and confusing propaganda in healthcare and the truth movement. Read Dr. Horowitz's book, Healing Celebrations, to learn how miracle healings can be made to happen through faith, prayer, and a pure diet. Get great immunity using vitamin C, D, and OxySilver, Liquid Dentist, GI Flora Pro, a top-shelf probiotic. Use Green Harvest as a great-tasting meal substitute for energizing organic nutrients and losing weight. And Zeolove, and natural clays for detoxifying your body. More advice, all these products and more are available from theCureShop.com. Including OxySilver, the world's most powerful silver hydrosol. Electro-energized to put risky injections, toxic antibiotics, and deadly drug pushers out of business. OxySilver is covalently bonded to water. Unlike any other silver product using the frequency of chlorophyll 528, what Dr. Horowitz explains is pure tone love, the universal healer. NASA originally developed covalently body silver hydrosols to keep astronauts healthy in space. Dr. Horowitz added the 528 frequency to NASA's formula and more. OxySilver works three ways to electrocute dangerous germs better than anything, far better than all leading silver products, and without any risk. OxySilver oxygenates and resonates with 528 for faster healing. So help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at healthworldaffiliates.com/4948. That's healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948. And buy OxySilver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. Buy OxySilver, GI Flora Pro, Green Harvest, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with two P's. CureShoppe.com. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
And as we have been programmed mentally, intellectually, one must be aware of this being programmed like a computer.
Programming that we are constantly assaulted by throughout our life conditions us. It programs us to a particular worldview.
The project is literally the secularization of the world. New secular or worldly order.
A new study says the news media have been pushing a gospel of godlessness on the American public.
Because this media is here and designed to make sure that they ask no critical questions. To make sure that the only thing that they are concerned about is having a good time. The only thing they're concerned about is filling their bellies. The only thing they're concerned about is acquiring more and more material things. And so that is why today, one of the struggles that you have as young people, that when you want to do different events and you want to talk about real issues, you have the struggle of many of your peers who've been so conditioned in this matrix that they would rather party than listen to the truth. They would rather party and shop and go to the mall than to stand up for issues of justice. They're stuck in the matrix. But you have the responsibility of helping to wake them up.
Now, how do we know that there's a God?
After having been thoroughly brainwashed.
And how do we know that there's a creator?
Living in a box on the inside, stuck in a trance of daily life. You're motionless and speechless, you have no insight. Dreaming of a tide to wash everything, it'd fall from the sky and crush every living thing. But without time, mistrust, it all surrounds you like sin. You're earthbound, bound by the sun, by the moon you run on hardened soil. You're earthbound. trapped in the world of business and oil. The TV lies while all hands toil. You're kept out locked, you're down to your last coin. Shouting in the rain like the soul within, like the monster in the dark. You don't
All right, folks, we are back. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera, and we've got a couple good guests coming. I know last time they were on, we had a lot of fun with them. It's a true and serious story they claim to be giving. I mean, I wasn't there, but I tend to believe them. And they'll be sharing that with us. They've had, various paranormal experiences on top of just the UFO thing. And I'll tell you, some people have, it seems, endless experiences while others go nuts hoping to have just one their entire life. And sometimes I wonder why that is. But I don't know, maybe Chad and Alton know. They met and married in the early 90s. In the city of Little Rock, Arkansas. The marriage, they say, was one of destiny. And as Alta would say, arranged. What they did not know is that from that moment on, they would partake into a journey into the world of unknown and high strangeness. From aliens to ghosts to shapeshifters, from meeting people who have been seen and some unseen. This is a story for the open-minded. In 1995, Chad and Alta experienced their first UFO, a massive sight in Hammond, Louisiana. This experience opened their eyes and led them to a well-known French Quarter in New Orleans, where the high strangeness continued. And, it does, folks. It's for me, I know, one little incident, then another incident, then a bigger incident, then the wow. And it's like after the wow, it's kind of simmered down a little. So I don't know what comes next after the wow. Do I get to take a ride or what? Anyways, as they tried to take day by day to understand their place and purpose of these unusual events, they met a young lady, a co-worker named Jacqueline. Little did Jacqueline know this would be the most unusual bond of her life. In 1997, a night that would live with them to their last breath, Chad and Alta and Jacqueline were taken from a street corner in the French Quarter. Alta calls this the night of missing time, where the three have shared their own individual experiences. So they're going to share all of this with us tonight. I could go on and on and on and on, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let them come on and tell their stories. So we'll be bringing them on in just a moment. Matter of fact, I was getting ready to call them, but I think they're calling in now. So, well, let's bring them on. Chad and Alta, I take it.
Yes, it is.
Well, hello. I was just getting ready to call you. If this is okay, unless you need me to call you back, we're ready to go.
We're cool. We're ready.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. Thanks a lot.
No, thank you. It's great to have you both back.
We so appreciate it. We're happy to be here.
Well, good. I know everybody's waiting to hear about your story. I think, didn't we have, I don't know if last time we had I had some kind of sound issue that was going on the last time you guys were on. We couldn't hear it live, but I think the recording, there was a problem. Well, we fixed all that now, so we could have a really good show tonight. And I guess let's start out with your backgrounds a little bit and how you guys got together and where it went from there.
Okay, so Chad's pointing at me to, I guess, go ahead and just sort of frame this for us. I like to think of it as beauty before age or what have you. But it doesn't work in our case, considering I'm older than he is. But anyhow, Chad and I met in 1990 under what I consider really strange circumstances. overall, on the surface, it seems like the normal, like we were kind of a blind date that didn't happen. It sort of ended up happening on Valentine's Day in 1990. But I've always been aware that there was this unseen hand involved in what I've considered an arrangement, that Chad and I, us coming together and finding each other, essentially was arranged. So this was, as I said, in 1990, with all kinds of high strangeness involved. And I'll also preface that everything that I talk about in particular that has to do with the paranormal, I consider, I borrowed the term a long time ago, and I've just always applied it as high strangeness. So then I'll go ahead and fast forward us. Chad and I married a year after we met. And then in 1995, we moved to Louisiana, and it was about an hour or so outside of New Orleans in a small community called Hammond, Louisiana. And we hadn't lived there but just a few months when this event took place in our lives. And essentially, I'll have Chad share with you what that event was that I consider our moment of waking up where we couldn't go back to sleep any longer.
Oh, okay.
Well, we had come into town for dinner, and we came around this bend in the road, and there, behind this bend in the road was this group of trees, and then back behind it was the local Walmart. And when we got around this group of trees, I got past it and looked up. There was this craft in the sky, and it was just, it was just huge. It was, bigger than big. It was just huge. And it was bigger than the Walmart shopping center and parking lot all combined. It was very low to the ground, I would say below cloud level, moving very slowly. It was, Alice and I kind of looked at it, and she looked at me, and I looked at her, and we kind of mentally to each other, it's like, okay, if it's not there, if we don't talk about it, it won't see us, and went on about our night and went to dinner and never really spoke about it. So that was kind of our first experience in the high strangeness type of thing.
And when that happened, I mean, were you expecting anything to follow? Because like I was saying at the beginning of the show, that most people cling to their life just hoping to have one experience, and then there's people like yourself and others, and even me, who have had sightings. Who has the pleasure of more than one experience.
Well, I've always, having lots of years of dealing with all of this and high strangeness happening to us, it seems like me almost more so than Chad, if you will, or at least I've taken notice of it more so than he has over the years. But all the different types of anomalies happening to us, I would also kind of back up and say that to listen to my mom speak about my early childhood, she's no longer living, so I can't talk to her about any of this directly. And I wasn't interested when she was living to discuss any of this paranormal anything with her. But to listen to her, she made it very clear that something took place all the way back when I'm, just a newbie. And that would have been in 1957, 1958. She claims that when I'm about 6 months old, she's driving across the desert. I happen to be from the desert originally. I'm from Arizona, a reservation area of Arizona. But she claims that while she's driving and I'm a passenger, the only one in the car with her, that a metallic craft came down out of the sky, and she said it was daylight and, daytime. So she clearly seemed to know what she saw. I'm sorry?
Oh no, I'm just listening. I think that was the connection of something that you might have heard.
So she claims that this craft came down out of the sky and landed on the road in front of her and stopped her from driving. Again, because I had no interest in it, it was embarrassing to me to have her say these things. Plus, again, because I had no interest, I never asked her about any of this. So, but it would appear, you know, trusting that she was in her right mind when this happened to her, it would appear that this has been going on apparently in my life, you know, essentially all my life in some form or another. So no explanation. Chad's had some strange, you know, if not Chad directly, his father has had some very strange paranormal as well. So it would appear that it seems to run in the family on both sides.
Yeah,
his and mine.
and that's often the case too. That you find that, especially abductees, it seems like it's been happening in their family for a long time, and it's like they're not the first ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, when Chad and I were first arranged, or met in 1990, we discovered within 24 hours. Again, there was a lot of paranormal, or in my mind, a lot of paranormal prior to this, you know, of us first meeting. But within 24 hours, we discovered that his grandfather and I share the same, you know, identical first and last name. And so just the fact that my name is so unusual anyhow, and the few times I've ever heard my name before, I've certainly never heard it given to a man before. So just, you know, again, it's all just so bizarre. No answers.
Well, sounds like you might be getting some answers now. So, okay, so you guys had this sighting, and you've had some. I don't know where you'd like to go. If you'd like to stick to one or the other, if we could flop back and forth. But you also had some ghost experiences, and I find it kind of strange that, you know, in my case as well, it's like I didn't take no rides on those ships or nothing, but I've had a close up view of one before, and on top of that, I've lived in a apartment that was haunted. I mean, literally, there was ghost activity in it, and I mean, that just seems to kind of go along with it too. It's like one goes with the other. It almost makes you wonder if they're connected in some way. I don't know if they are, but you know,
Absolutely.
we hear about
my favorite. It's my favorite subject. My favorite subject is just listening to all of it and trying to see where it feels like it's all woven together some way, somehow. We're happy, Michael, to go anywhere you'd like us to. We can jump in and out, and you know, any subject or any of the areas that you know that we're involved in. We're happy to. It's like I said, we're just really grateful to have this opportunity to even speak about all of this. So,
well, thank you. I guess if we could, then we'll keep it in order as events happened, because I think the final event was probably the most incredible, right?
Right.
Yeah. So.
Well, it's interesting. We haven't quite had a final yet. So.
Yeah, I shouldn't say final. Maybe I should say the last.
We had a Whopper.
The biggest one.
Yeah, we did have a Whopper. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, so after this takes place, then in '95, this again, the way I understand it, this awakening moment, this time of not being able to deny something that we could not explain. Chad and I never spoke about that encounter, that seeing that massive craft, but we discovered very shortly, within 24 hours of that others had witnessed it as well, because somebody apparently they'd reported it, and it was either a newscast over the radio or in the paper. I think we heard it over the radio. So it made it very clear to Chad and I that what we were trying really hard not to pay any attention to, like it would just go away, certainly at that point we realized something clearly did take place. What we think we saw. And so now, later that year, this is in 1995, we've now decided to move to the French Quarter of New Orleans, about an hour away. And literally from the moment we arrived to the French Quarter, that term high strangeness took on all forms. It manifested itself in the forms of, you mentioned, I call them ghosties. You mentioned ghosts, let's go there, because that was clearly the moment that really, I think Chad and I both, separately and together, were very aware that this, again, unseen hand was showing itself in different forms. So I'll have Chad share with you some of the experiences he was encountering when we first moved to the French Quarter.
Okay, great.
Well, tell me about your dad, if you don't mind. We'll back up, first of all, and have Chad share with you about his father's experience when Chad was younger.
Okay. And when he was talking just a minute ago, it was really muffled. So I don't know if it's a speakerphone thing or what it might be, but if there's any way we can clear that up, that would be awesome.
Okay. Is that better now?
That is better.
Okay. But, my dad had a few experiences when I was younger. When I was real young, like 6 or 7, with my dad and my grandfather and my uncle, they were all rice farmers, rice and soybean farmers there in Arkansas. And I remember them talking about these 3 burnt circles out by the side of our house, out in the middle of the soybean field between the house and the shop area where they had all the tractors and all. And, they were perfect round circles, probably 12, 15 foot in diameter, just in a straight line, bam, 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 So that was kind of one of the first things. Later on, when I was a teenager, I remember my dad and my stepmom talking about a time where they came home one night and the whole house, the furniture was rearranged, just really crazy. Everything, just moved around, rearranged, the house. Not, messed up or anything like that, just rearranged. Okay.
That is crazy. Well, it's strange. I don't know if it's crazy, but it is strange.
Yeah. I mean,
secret decorator.
They weren't really sure what was happening, but
Sounds like they like to play mind games.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but that was a couple of really strange things I remember as I was growing up.
And then I, in my youth, had, it felt like more than the average kind of encounters with that unseen force, that ghosty kind of experiences, things moving, strangeness happening all around me periodically throughout my life. And then it would seem like people that I would befriend or that would befriend me would seem to have haunted houses. For instance, one of my high school, well, actually I was still in high school, and this guy friend of mine that had graduated a couple of years ahead of me, his family were a wealthy family in the community, and they lived in a mansion. And I would spend a lot of time over there as a guest, and the mother literally would have a table setting for this ghost at this big, long, beautiful table that everybody sat down every night to have dinner. She would have a setting out every night, or apparently 3 times a day. It was breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I had a neighbor like that. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had a neighbor like that, old lady, back when I was about 19. And so I used to go check on her, and she had the table set. She was probably close to 80, and she claimed her father was always upstairs, and she had pitchers. You could tell her she was trying to feed these pitchers cookies and stuff. And I thought, But and I used to think she's crazy. It's like, well, this woman's just feeding pictures and stuff. But if you spent any time in the house, you got this creepy feeling, and your hair would stand up on end, and it's like you knew that you weren't alone. It's just this feeling you got. But anyways, it just brought it back hearing you say that. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, creepy. Just and as I would go and visit this guy friend's house, not only was it honored by the family, which I was grateful for, it almost made that very Abby normal, and this was in the 70s. Back in the 70s, Midwest country, part of the country, where it just was not huge, big city, New York City or, LA kind of strangeness. And, so it almost like gave it, I don't know, an honor, if you will, of whoever this invisible was being treated so well by the family. But then there'd be moments when, sitting there just visiting, all of a sudden one of their, as I said, they lived in a mansion, and they had these huge, very thick wood doors. And all of a sudden, one of these huge doors would slam shut, just, and scare the stuff right out of you.
Well, that's why my mom always told me, do not feed the ghosts because they won't stop coming.
Right. Right. Well, I found that, it wasn't just me visiting this guy friend's home. It seemed to be something that was more normal for me than not, even in my own private setting, in my own home and so on and so forth. So if you will now, we'll go ahead and move forward back to Chad and I have moved to the French Quarter, and I'll have Chad share with you some of the things that were happening to him first in regards to the ghost and the unseen.
Okay, fantastic.
Well, we had just gotten our first apartment, and it was above the Voodoo Temple right there in the French Quarter. And it was probably it was within the first week of us being there. And
we were very naive and knew nothing about voodoo, nor did we have interest.
No, we thought the drums were beautiful, and that was about it.
Yeah. Very naive.
Right. So we move above this Voodoo Temple. Well, I'm sitting there, and we're in bed one night, or, like it was said, it was like within the first week. And, you don't have to be dirty to have bugs, especially the big palmetto bugs. They're everywhere. They'll get in your house. They crawl everywhere. But I'm sitting there one night, and it felt like one was on my chest. Well, I'd wake up, and I would scratch or knock it off or whatever, and I'd go back to sleep, and it would do it again, and I would go up, and I would scratch. And, thinking back, if it was a bug, it would be, on my shoulder one minute, on my head the next, down somewhere else later on, So, but, I wake up the next morning, and I dug a couple of layers of skin off, this one particular spot on my chest. And I go on to work, and throughout my day, this memory starts coming back. And I remember seeing this very, very dark-skinned, African-y looking man. He was, he didn't have a shirt on. All I could see was his torso up. From his torso down was like a mist or a fog, kind of. He was horizontal, laying horizontal above me, facing down. And I'm laying there, and he would take his finger and just kind of tickle my chest right there above my heart, right around my heart. And I'd go up and I'd scratch. And when I go up to scratch, he would move his hand. And I'd go back to sleep, and then he would do it again. He would tickle my chest right there, and that exact spot. I'd go up and I'd scratch. And it's happened, 4, 5, 6 times throughout the night, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, wow, that was weird. You know, I get home, and you know, Alta being Native American, we always had the burn with the cedar and the sweetgrass and all, the sage. So I get it, and I burn. I've got it going. I'm like, hey, you know, we're cool. I said, you don't have to leave or anything like that. I said, just leave me alone. I said, you know, just leave me alone. And never had any more problems. A couple months later, this couple moved in down below us in another apartment. And now the voodoo priest had died recently before we moved in. So we never really got to see him. We never saw him. But the couple down below had been married by this voodoo priest. And they brought out their wedding pictures, and they're showing me the wedding pictures, and they show me, and this is priest so-and-so, I forget his name. This is priest such and such, you know, and she hands me the picture, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, that's the person that was up above my bed, you know, messing with me that first week we were here. And I told them the same story I told you just now. And they're like, yep, that sounds just like him. He was a trickster. He would test you, and he would trick you, and he would, you know, or not trick you, but he would test you, and he would, you know, you'd have to prove to hang out with him or to be in his space. And come to find out, we were living in his old apartment. Him and I guess the voodoo priestess didn't get along all the time, so she had her space and he had his, but we were in his old apartment. So, but that was kind of my first really woo-woo moment with the ghost kind of thing, you know, up close and personal like that, touching me. And I would hear my name called throughout when I'd be walking through the French Quarter. It would be like, and I'd turn around and nobody would be around. Another time I was working at, I worked right in a bar right off of Bourbon Street, right on Bourbon Street. And this was when we were first there. And it was a really old place, and in the front it had the little bar and the carriageway, and it went back into the patio dining and all that. And you know, I'd done my shift, and it was probably, you know, 11, 12 o'clock at night, and you know, it was getting late, and the night bartender was just a really cool guy, very philosophical, just awesome bartender. Yeah, so we get into these deep conversations. Alta came over, and there's probably 3 or 4 of us sitting at the bar talking to Freak, bartender. And all of a sudden, it felt like somebody came up behind me and put their arms on my shoulder, kind of leaned up against me, and my bar still kind of leaned back, you know, kind of not waddled back. And I looked around, and nobody there. I was like, wow, that was weird. And, you know, I go on and we start talking again, and it happened again. And this time I get up and I go out of the bar and I look out on the carriageway, and I look out the front, and I look out, and, you know, expecting maybe one of the other waiters was just messing with me. Again, nobody around, nobody running. Well, about 10 minutes later, the manager, she comes down the stairs, and she comes into the bar, and she's like, I just fell down. Something just pushed me down the stairs. I fell down the stairs, and it was a push. And I was like, wow, that's just crazy. And I told her, I said, something just touched me in the bar. And apparently the story, of course, every place has a story there about their resident ghost, it was a ghost, and I don't remember her name, but it was a female ghost, and she was supposedly always teased or messed with the guys and pushed the females down the stairs. So that was a couple of pretty crazy, ghosty things that happened to me there in the French Quarter.
Yeah, see, and I can relate to having somebody else's apartment because that was my case, and in my case, it was a father and a daughter, a little girl, and you know they like to goof around and freak you out for the most part, but then in the end, you know, it got kind of serious. They tried starting the place on fire, and you know, so that was time for me to leave, and I haven't heard nothing from them. So good thing is they're attached to that place, I guess, not me. So, but yeah, so I can relate to that. It's like they still feel like it's their place, and almost
Right.
like you know you don't belong there.
Yeah, yeah. There's another.
When you mentioned fire, this kind of leads into, it happened to both Chad and I, but I had my own very strange time slip experience in that apartment that seemed, I stress the word seemed, to encounter a being that in the experience one would have thought maybe she was the Virgin Mary. She never said that's who she was. I never asked her. There's, you know, quite a bit to that experience, but I had this very strange, as I said, out of time, like a time slip encounter that took place with this female and other beings that were in the experience as well, that I thought at the time might have been possibly old slaves. They were very young in the experience, like maybe in their late teens, early 20s. They were three females. They were African American. And I just had the sense when I was having this experience that I'm with this Virgin Mary looking female and these three possibly slaves from another time and place. And so after having this very weird encounter, I then, it wasn't long after this, I can't remember exactly how long, but very short time after this experience, Chad and I were now asleep one night in our room, and I remember either being awoken or just waking, going to sleep and then coming back awake again to thinking that I was smelling smoke. And I woke Chad up, and he just basically convinced me I was dreaming, go back to sleep. So I started to try to go back to sleep, and at this stage now, what I thought was smoke now is white smoke billowing into our bedroom. It's coming straight into our bedroom. Now I got Chad's attention. The smoke's got his attention. We jump out of bed. I don't even remember because we moved so fast, running through the apartment, down the stairs, and into the courtyard, yelling fire, and all the other residents around the courtyard are running out into the courtyard, including the voodoo priestess, and white smoke is billowing out of that temple that's down below us and to the left of our apartment. It's just billowing out of there, and we got all kinds of firemen who've shown up for this fire, and, you know, I'll have Chad take over, you know, essentially what happened, because this whole experience was so bizarre.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, you know, any fire in the French Quarter is a 3-alarm fire because of the age and how close the buildings are. And we get in to the temple, and it's, you know, it's me, it's the priestess, and it's probably 10 firemen, you know, in this, you know, not very big temple. And we're looking around, and I mean, we don't see anything. You know, we can see smoke, but you can't see where there's a fire. And we're looking, and we're looking, and we're looking. And finally, after probably 15, 20 minutes, I guess, of looking around, we looked down, and it was right around the time of their anniversary, and she had made a shrine for her and her husband, and she had her wedding gown and his suit up on the wall, and then all these pictures of the saints, and then all these candles down below, and it looked like one of the candles gotten so small in the glass jar that it was in, it kind of burst and broke and caught some things afire. And you could see where the smoke had traveled up the wall, and it like stopped right at the sink. And if it would have went up any farther, it would have caught her dress and a bunch of other fabric and stuff.
Which has just been so weird to me after all these years, again, of thinking back about all of this and these experiences. Here I'm having this time slip encounter or out of time encounter with something that looks like she could have been the Virgin Mary, and these apparent what look like possibly old African slaves. And, you know, then we got this invisible fire going up the wall right to the pictures of the saints. It was all just so bizarre. We had a lot of high strangeness like that take place around there.
Well, what type of feeling did you get from it? Was it a good vibe, a just unknown vibe, or a really bad vibe?
In what in particular, Michael?
Well, I mean, the whole incident. Did it, did it give you a creepy feeling, like uncomfortable, or yeah?
Yes. Yes. That would be a yes. Like I said, we had no idea, neither one of us. I'm 10 years older than Chad, so you'd have thought I might have had an excuse at this stage of the game, but neither one of us had a clue what we were going into when we moved to the French Quarter.
Yeah,
we had no idea about voodoo, hoodoo, nothing.
We were so green back then.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't know.
We didn't know nothing.
You know,
so it was just all mind blowing.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And just beyond bizarre. So it wasn't long after all of, you know, this kind of craziness was taking place and so on. Chad and I then moved from that location, thank goodness, to into the heart of the quarter. This first location was the outskirts of the quarter, the outer perimeter of it. Now we've moved smack dab right almost into the middle of it. We're just, a couple blocks off of the famous Bourbon Street and really building a good name for ourselves. Chad was kind of building his own businesses and did a lot of work for a lot of different businesses there in the community, and I was working in a very exclusive reading salon at the time, and I had been picked as the only reader, chosen as the only reader at the time to be written about in a book about New Orleans by a journalist that was with the Washington Post. So we were both doing well for ourselves as far as I said, building a good name for ourselves. And the place that I worked was only a couple blocks from where Chad and I lived. And at the time that we lived there, in the townhouse that we moved to, we had a black Great Dane and a half Rottweiler, half Doberman that were, I consider, our children. Chad and I chose to never have physical children, so the dogs in our lives have always been, or the critters in our lives, I should say, have always been our babies. And so, so we've got these two, you know, the Dane ended up being a small pony, needless to say. He was so big. These big, beautiful dogs in our lives. And life is good. You know, we're building a good name for ourselves, so on and so forth. The people that I worked for was a family-owned business. They had started their business in 1929. So at the time that I came on board, they'd already been in business for over 70 years and were well known around the world. And so they own two shops in the French Quarter. They generally hired outside help to come in and help manage the shops, but they also included a lot of their family members of all ages, from teenagers all the way up to the elder, the matriarch who was in her 70s. All these folks worked in these shops. They hired a young woman named Jacqueline. And from the moment that I met Jacqueline, it was an instant knowing. I don't know if you've ever, Michael, met anybody that you knew from some other time and place, but
I've had people who've given me that feeling, yes.
right, that's what I experienced the moment that I met Jacqueline. It was a good, deep, happy feeling, almost like having a reunion with somebody. And again, that's pretty strange, and I'm just pointing that out because of what our experience led into. At the time that this took place, this was in 1997 now. I had just turned 40, Chad was 30, and Jacqueline was 24 at the time. She had never been married before, nor did she have children either. She, just describing her, is a tall, slender, long blonde hair, very attractive, very gregarious, but straightforward kind of gal, not somebody who took to fancy at all. She wasn't a drama queen that I could remember of any kind. She had an infectious laugh, has an infectious laugh. We're still connected to her all these years later. So anyhow, we have this wonderful, what felt like reunion for me in meeting her, and it was like an instant friendship. She, one day, asked me if I wanted to go out that evening and hang out, go have dinner and drinks in the French Quarter. So I accepted, so we decided to call Chad and come join us. As I said, it was only a couple blocks from where we lived, so Chad walked over to the shop. Now, it's important to remember this, and what we account to you is that Jacqueline had chosen to drive to work that morning, which was unusual. She generally, she didn't live in the French Quarter. She lived across the river, and folks that lived over in that area generally took a ferry back and forth. Well, this particular morning, she chose to drive her car, and she parked her car just up the street from our shop. That evening, we decided to, start in the quarter at one end of it and just make a night of it and walk across the quarter and stop wherever we cared to. So our night starts about 9:30 in the evening, and just to kind of speed this up a little bit, because it doesn't take very long for our night to be over, we literally, from the moment we started our evening, I remember taking note, very quickly that the energy was off, that the vibe was off around me. It was like the air felt different. It just felt different. And as we're walking, we're now on that famous Bourbon Street, and there are very few people milling about, and that's just unheard of in the French Quarter. French Quarter is a 24/7 party that never sleeps. And so, right, so on this particular night, there were a few stragglers, but I've talked to Jacqueline, she doesn't remember much about that either. She remembers less about that even than Chad and I just remember it being, where is everybody, as we're walking down the street. From the moment we started our evening, Chad's sitting here and shaking his head in agreement with me.
I forget you can't see me.
Because he's remembering also that it was just weird. It was like, where is everybody? So essentially it took an hour and a half for this night to take place. It started around 9:30. It took us that much time to cross the quarter, and that's about 23 blocks. We got to the other side of the quarter. We had stopped in 3 different locations. In all of these locations, there were nobody in any of the bars or the restaurants. If a place had a restaurant, they didn't have any wait staff. It seemed like there was one human in each location, a bartender or a manager. We didn't even think about how weird that was. We were just at this point over it. It was so boring. Yeah, Chad's like yawning and, and making gestures of, that's enough of this. We've tried to make a good night of something that's just not happening for whatever reason. I can't explain it, but Chad, I just want to go home. And so at this stage now, we're at the opposite end of the quarter. I remember telling Chad, I just want to go home, and it's around 11-ish at night, and that's the last thing the 3 of us remember, is around 11 o'clock at night consciously. The next thing I know, it's the next day. I'm sitting up in my living room, scanning around my living room, almost in a full-blown panic. Where's Chad? Where's Jacqueline? How in the hell am I sitting in my house? A lot worse words were coming to my mind at that time, because I'm almost in a controlled hysteria. And I've got an object in my upper arm I can feel as I'm rubbing my arms, and there's a whole lot to all of that. So anyhow, I'll have Chad share with you, if you're interested at this point, Michael, or we can go anywhere you'd like. Chad's had regression done since, that event, so that he has an account of what he feels happened to him that night. And we suspect possibly Jacqueline. But keep in mind, what he shares with you is that I'm the only one out of the three of us that seem to be returned with memory of the in-between experience. And in my memory, I have no account of Chad and Jacqueline at all. And in Chad's regression, you'll discover I don't seem to be in the picture at all in their experience. So,
all right, yeah.
Where would you like us to go?
Sure. Let's hear about the regression.
Yeah, like Alta said, the last thing I remember is being on that corner on that stoop that night about 11:30. What comes out in the regression is we're standing on that stoop, and Jacqueline had come back to join us, and I see this bright light coming from around the corner and through the glass windows at this building that we were standing next to. And I get the girl's attention, and we walk around this corner, and there's this orb, and it's probably 12 foot in diameter. It's probably about 15 foot off the ground. And it's just kind of hovering there, probably about mid-block. And we get around the corner, and we see this thing, and we kind of watch it for, maybe a half a second or so. It just kind of comes out, and just engulfs us, just takes us in. And it's this beautiful, bright, white, clean, beautiful light, orb, and it takes us in. And then my next memory is I'm walking down this hallway. It's kind of turning to the left, or I'm sorry, to the right. In front of me is this little being, and he's probably 3.5 foot tall. He's got a big, bulbous, kind of pale gray skin tone. He's wearing a one-piece kind of jumpsuit thing, kind of spandexy looking. It's black. He's got this gray skin, but he doesn't look like the grays that you see on TV. He's got more bulk to him. He's almost dwarfish. He waddles when he walks. To the left of me, I could see kind of a tall blonde female beside me. Now, I didn't turn to look to see, but this kind of describes our friend Jacqueline. My next memory is in this room, and it just seems infinite. It's just huge. Now, it's totally black. I could see, off in the distance, I could see a tall blonde female laying on an examining table. Now, she's censored from head to toe. I can't tell who it is, or she's nude, but I can't see body parts or anything like that. There are 3 beings around her, two at each side, and one at her head. And these beings were very tall, 8-9 foot tall. And I call them kind of almost praying mantis-y looking. Their mouths were down close to their chin, big eyes. Their arms were kind of folded, almost like a praying mantis arms do. They were wearing these black cloaks from their neck down, almost looked like something a Jesuit priest or a Grim Reaper without the hood. She never seemed to be in distress or pain or anything like that. I moved my attention back to my immediate, and I look over to the right, and there's this little blue being. And when I say blue, he's this just very bright, electric, live blue, just beautiful blue. He looks a lot like the grays that you see on TV, you know, big bulbous head, almond-shaped eyes, very thin. His presence, his aura, felt like that of a priest slash scientist slash shaman, professor, all this healer all together, just real yummy. He goes over and he picks up this box, and he has it in his right hand. He takes his left hand and puts it into the side of the box. And when he pulls his hand out, there's this substance, and it's free-floating a couple of inches above his hand. It's blue, just the same color as him. It's kind of see-through a little bit, but not all the way. It looks kind of like that slime stuff that the kids play with. But it was blue instead of green, and it had little sparkly, kind of glittery, metal flaky looking stuff in it, kind of sparkling. He sets the box down. Actually, I don't even remember him setting the box down. He takes his right hand, and he's only got 4 fingers, 4 digits. He takes his hand and he takes his 2 middle fingers and sticks them up almost in kind of like a peace sign. He takes his 2 outer fingers and folds them in towards each other. And he does this almost like what you see depictions of Christ or the saints do, or Buddhists do. And when he does this substance starts spinning. And the faster it spun, the blueness and the sparkly stuff kind of dissipated out of it and was just kind of free-floating, rotating around it. It starts slowing down, and it turned into this double-pointed crystal pyramid, probably a couple of inches long. And I remember thinking to him, you know, why are you showing this to me? You know, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer. You know, this is something very important. Why are you showing this to me? And he told me that I will know in time, or when it's time. My next memory is I'm in another room. There's only 3 walls, 2 very straight and 1 kind of concave. The walls all are metallic, no rivets, no bolts, very smooth. There's this very big overstuffed leather chair right in the middle of the room. And I remember thinking to myself how out of place, and it looks comfortable, but it's not. So I focused my attention back to the wall that's kind of concave. And I walk a little closer to it, and what I thought was this solid gray metallic wall, I could see through it. And I could see stars and planets, and, you know, I could see the galaxy. It was dark and just lit up with all these, beautiful lights, you know, from these stars and planets. I'm sitting there kind of in awe, and all of a sudden, this craft shoots past right outside the wall window there. It gets, 9-10 foot past me, and it kind of does a double take and comes back, and it's like sitting right outside the wall, and it's just kind of hovering right outside, and it's got little lights on it blinking and little wires and metal antenna things moving around on it. And, it's just beautiful. It's really cool. It's, you know, probably about 3 foot long, 2 foot wide, kind of football shape. You know, it sits there about 30, 45 seconds and shoots off again. And my next memory is waking up in bed the next morning.
That's fascinating. That is. So now, where did the shapeshifter come into play now?
The shape-shifting is, I was just going to pick it back up and then back up a little bit and explain Jacqueline's part in all of this, because she's given us permission to speak on her behalf. We also have her portion of this story in her own writing, if you will. So, as I said earlier, Jacqueline drove to work that morning, and I'll get back to that in a second. Let's back up prior to this encounter, this event happening to the three of us. It wasn't long before this particular day, and I don't know how long, but pretty recently, prior to this event, Jacqueline had been dating a young man for a brief time, and his name is Will, and I always called him Dark Boy. He was what I felt was her opposite. He, as I said, she's tall, slender, long blonde hair, very alive and gregarious and so on. He was her opposite in the regards of, I never remember him laughing. He was quite cute, had long dark hair, and so I called him Dark Boy. Well, anyhow, she just dated him for a moment, and on this particular day, she chose to basically say to him, you know, she didn't want to see him seriously any longer. She decided to invite him over to her house, and it was during the daytime, and this is all taking place out on her front porch. She lived in a duplex at the time and had a big front porch. So she's standing out there and giving him the I like you but kind of story, and she says he's only just, you know, it's daytime, as I said, she's got a clear view. He's just a couple inches in front of her face, and she says that as she's basically breaking up with him, he's becoming extremely emotional, and as he's becoming emotional, then he, as she says, and I absolutely believe her, this is her truth, he changed into a wolf. She said he shifted into a wolf. She said she turned her head away, just like I feel is what I did when I saw that first craft, when I just turned my head away like I didn't see it. If I didn't look, it didn't happen. Jacqueline said she turned her head away in shock. She looked back, and he must have shifted in between. She said he did it a second time right in front of her face, and she said the second time he did it, I'll clean it up a little bit, but she literally used the language. She said in a very startled voice, she said, "You just turned into an effing wolf." And she said he looked so startled when she did this to him that his response, and a startled response, was, "You saw that." So it confirmed to her she saw what she saw. So this all just takes place right prior to this event happening to the three of us. So the next thing Jacqueline knows, as we've said to you collectively, the three of us seem to remember around the same amount of time, just being out there about an hour and a half with no drugs or alcohol, nor, as I said earlier, was there anybody around to drug us. That would have been an easy excuse for all of us, but that's not one that we have. So anyhow, Jacqueline says that the next thing that she knows, after remembering it around 11 or 11:30 that evening on that street corner, the next thing she knows, she's now behind the steering wheel of her car, and it's moving. And that car is now no longer parked where she parked it that morning. It's now in a whole other section of the city. It's also moving slowly, and it hit a parked car and knocked off her rear view mirror, which is what essentially jolted Jacqueline too. Then ultimately the car ends up, I say the car because it's like the car seemed to be driving itself. She and the car end up over in this guy's neighborhood that she'd broken up with, this Will that had shapeshifted. he doesn't live in a particularly nice neighborhood. It's not someplace she wants to be. She's saying it's around 3 or 4 in the morning. She claims that normally his apartment is got a locked gate around it, but on this particular morning, it's wide open. She says she goes up the stairs. She says he's right inside the front door, and she said he's sitting under a light playing a guitar. And she claims that when she got up to that door, he stopped playing the guitar and, just like a creepy movie, looked at her and said, either I've been waiting for you or we've been waiting for you. She says that she began to cry. She claims that he led her into a room and laid her down. She said she cried herself hysterically to sleep. It must not have been for very long, maybe, I don't know, probably less than a couple hours, because I think the sun was just coming up. When her eyes popped open, she said, or she woke up and she looked around. She realized where she was. She said she's completely dressed. Nothing had happened, but she said she got the F out of there and never looked back. So that's that shape-shifting event.
Fascinating. All right. Well, listen, we're up for a break, so why don't we take that, and then we'll come back and talk some more. And I'd like to hear more about, what you thought about the abduction. Would you even consider it an abduction, the missing time? And we'll get into some of that when we come back. So, folks, this is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera with Chad and Alta. And we have Stu, the Money and Change, coming up here tonight as well. So looking forward to it all, folks. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Again, LateNightInTheMidlands.com. That is the mothership. Go on over, become a member, subscribe, keep us on the air. We'll be right back.
You have found the best place on the internet by tuning into K98Talk.com, where it is our mission to broadcast the very best variety programming, giving you a balance of information from every angle and letting you decide. We are here to serve our listening audience with a proven track record. So stay with K98Talk.com and the Spark Radio Network, and we will keep you informed.
Hello, this is Lisa Marie, here to tell you about OxySilver, legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Read Dr. Horowitz's book, Healing Celebrations, to learn how miracle healings can be made to happen through faith, prayer, and a pure diet. Get great immunity using vitamin C, D, and OxySilver, Liquid Dentist, GI Flora Pro, a top-shelf probiotic. Use 528 Superfood as a great tasting meal substitute for energizing organic nutrients and losing weight, and Zeolove and natural clays for detoxifying your body. OxySilver oxygenates and resonates with 528 for faster healing. So help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948 and buy OxySilver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. Buy OxySilver, GI Flora Pro, 528 Superfood, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with 2 P's. Cure Shop. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
It's the middle of the night and there's nothing much to do. Bring your insomniac self over to Late Night in the Midlands and learn something. We've got every topic you can think of and very little being off limits. Alien abductions, government corruptions, the stuff that's got your sleep disrupted. Come join the conversation tales and tune into Late Night in the Midlands with your host, Michael Vera.
In many cases is the idea that the aliens are essentially trying to create a hybrid mix
on the
themselves
bodies
and
were small.
They're interested in our
Smaller
DNA,
than
our genetic
human
makeup.
bodies.
Beyond that, they're interested in
The heads were larger and the eyes were rather sunken and a little slanted.
Range of
And
what happened
they
was
were strange.
they came to me.
They were not of this earth.
We have to face up to reality that, for example, the UFO phenomenon is a real phenomenon, no question about it. So anybody who debunks the UFO phenomenon itself don't know what he or she's talking about.
Hey, Michael, I promised you I'd call in for a little bit, and here I am.
I know that I bashed Bush the entire time. I wasn't even allowed on Coast to Coast there for a while because I was told not to talk about Bush.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Late Night in the Midlands. We cover everything. All right, folks, we are back. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera, and I've been waiting all evening for the birth of my granddaughter, and so not yet, still waiting, but should be happening here sometime tonight, within the next couple hours, we hope. Little Tara will enter the world, and there will be yet one more of my bloodline on this planet to that keeps me in this fight. So with that, folks, the website latenightinthemidlands.com. Go on over, become a member, be informed, inform others. There's so many out there that need to be informed. I'll tell you. I spent a little while. The Facebook feed will drive you nuts because I get these coast to coast groups, which there's a lot of good people in them. Don't get me wrong, but wow, do the trolls hang out in those groups? Trying to debunk every little thing. Chemtrails aren't real. Aliens aren't real. They're not real. They're not real. They're fake. They're reading from playbooks. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. Tonight we're talking with Chad and Alta. And they are telling us about their paranormal, their high strangeness experiences, if you will. And, of course, the ET UFO experiences, really interesting. And if you want to call in, if you got a question or a comment, 803-317-2264 is the number to call in. We'll take your calls. In about another half hour, we've got Stu coming up with Money and Change, and it should be an interesting segment as well. So Chad and Alta, we are back, and we've got about a half hour to go here. And what I want to do is, wherever you'd like to go ahead. Give us the gist. Certainly, I'd like to know what you think about it all. Do you feel like do you feel like you were abducted, for one? And if so, do you feel you were violated? What are you feeling about all this? I guess I'm trying to get a feel of, do you get a sense of hostility at all, or what do you feel with the whole kit and caboodle? But I mean, certainly tell us more about it. Okay, did we lose him? Hello. All right, folks. I don't know. Oh, there you are. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. I was just saying, if you want to pick up with the story and give us an idea of what your whole overall feeling is on it. Do you feel like it's hostile? Do you feel like it's a good thing with these UFO, these ET experiences? Do you feel like you've been abducted? I guess first off, if you had some missing time, is that what you feel like? That's what happened.
Well, as I was saying, and apparently was muted earlier, congratulations, Michael, on your new arrival almost.
Well, thank you. It'll be my fourth grandchild now. So I don't know. It's I'm only 43, so I don't know if they're trying to put me to an early grave or what.
Yeah, you just did it. You've made up for Chad and I not doing it.
Yeah, I think I have, because I've got 6 of my own kids. So
wow.
Yeah, we've got a large family. We're trying to build an army to fight that New World Order. So
absolutely right. Build your own. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've already got the baseball team. I think between the grandkids and my own kids, we can have a baseball team now.
That's just perfect.
Yeah.
As far as my particular take on this abduction business, I've never used the term abduction, and I'm even having a hard time finding any words to use for any of it other than to know for a fact that I'm not crazy. I hear everybody always say, I'm not crazy. You're never going to believe this. And I really, at this stage of it, Chad and I have never tried proving that any of this happened to us. We've never set out to try to prove any of this, just to share with folks, that this is happening to us, and knowing that there have to be so many more out there that it's happening to, and just, I essentially have just been trying to find others, because I can certainly find no answers. That's the one thing I'm very clear on, is the longer I'm in this, the more I understand, for me personally, there just are no answers. I've had a lot of fallout from the experiences as far as me personally, again, in terms, now I've not heard Jacqueline ever make any indication to Chad and I in any of her messages that she's had any kind of physical ailments or problems from, whatever happened to us. And I don't know that Chad has had any either, but I seem to, of course, lucky me, I seem to have some kind of an issue going on with my leg, that I have the very strong sense that I have a radiation burn on my leg that won't heal. I've had it now for the last probably almost 5 years, and it's very unsightly, and it causes me a lot of problems. And
is there is there a way that the doctors can tell if that's a radiation burn or not? I mean, could they, or won't they?
I'm not sure. I just honestly don't know. I've only found myself here in the last couple years or so without health insurance, so that's caused me to have to really step back a lot of times and not just, go frivolously to a doctor. Well, this is a situation, though, that has been, it's been an experience that I'm dealing with on a very private level. But because of all of what I've gone through over the object in my upper arm, we sent you x-ray pictures, Michael, that, to show you these x-rays that I've had taken. of this object that people call implants, that I call unknowns. I don't know, either terrible luck, no luck at all, whatever, but I've never found anybody interested in any of this. Nobody in the professional world that I'm aware of, certainly nobody in the medical profession, and certainly nobody in the sciences that I've come across or been involved with, seem to have any interest in any of this whatsoever.
Well, the one guy that I knew that probably would have taken an interest, especially with your x-ray that shows there's something there, is Dr. Roger Lear, but unfortunately he's no longer with us.
Right, it was because of Dr. Lear actually that I got that x-ray. It was his, I was working with him, this was back in 2002, because he is the only one in the world, which is just crazy. But so far, that's all I've been able to discover. The only one in the world who was involved on a physical level with these objects and so on and so forth. So anyhow, right, he passed this last year, and there's just nowhere to go with any of this. So as I said, even if I would have continued with Dr. Lear, just for anybody out there that's listening that could have these objects in their body or think they have these so-called implants, I discovered very quickly that if I would have agreed to surgery to have the objects removed, I had to give up all rights to the object. And that's not something I feel that I've ever been willing to do. So, that's a very important part of all of this as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
they didn't give us a book of rules, Michael.
Well, Dr. Roger Lear would tell me about how these objects would move when they tried to get them out, and eventually they would sometimes get in areas where it was dangerous to keep chasing them. So
exactly, right. Mine chose not to take an x-ray. I mean, I speak about it as if it is a consciousness, because it certainly seems that way to me. And it, as Chad's saying, and it moves. The objects move.
Well, we're able now to create. We're able to make. They've just started. At least what they're telling us, they just started. But with computers and like robotic type computers that are able to learn. I mean, they teach themselves things. They teach themselves how to play video games and teach themselves how to interact with humans. And so if they're able to do that if we're able to do that on the low level we're doing it, I would imagine some advanced race would probably be much, much ahead on that. And so it's probably a part biological, part computerized mechanism that's in you.
If one is to listen to folks such as, Dr. Lear had several folks on his team that I know of, and then I'm sure there are so many that I don't know of, but one of them in particular, this gentleman is a doctor, Dr. Koontz, Koontz, who...
Oh, yeah, I know of him, too. Mm-hmm.
Right, he's a physicist who put his findings online of taking some of these objects. My understanding is they removed 17 of the objects from 16 different patients, and at least that's what they admit to. And Dr. Koontz indicates that whatever is involved in these, what they're calling implants, whatever, I keep calling them unknowns, because to me it's not possible to know. I've never understood it to be possible to know under this situation that we live under, the circumstances we live under, with our mindset and our limitations and so on. I've just never had any sense whatsoever that it was possible to truly understand these objects. I certainly have my thoughts on it, my private thoughts, but Dr. Koontz indicates 80 to 100 million years in advance. Civilization is responsible for these objects.
Yeah, I've talked with Dr. Robert Koontz, probably 5 or 6 different times on the air. We've spoken off the air as well, and he gives you a whole earful on what this stuff is, and he's very sure of himself too.
He seems very sure of he seems much more sure of himself than I feel about any of it. I just know that my living experience with the object is, when I went in to get those x-rays originally via Dr. Lear, long distance, the object chose not to take a picture the first 2 times. It gave a perfect x-ray of my arm as if it was not there. And yet you can physically see and touch this object just underneath the top layer of skin. So it's mind blowing. It's just mind blowing. It's some kind of, it's so, I can't even get my brain wrapped around it. I've listened to so-called experts and the experiencers and coming from all directions. I've studied it now consistently, nonstop since 2001, literally nonstop. And I just discovered that I don't hear anybody close to having any answers.
Well, let me ask you this, and not a trick question, but have you ever had an MRI? And the reason I ask is because if this was a metallic type object, you would think an MRI might pull it right out. And so if you have had an MRI and this hasn't been maybe yanked on, tugged on, or even, who knows, scrambled in some way, then it's possible that it's not metallic and it's more of a biological implant. I'm really curious as to what these are. And, Dr. Roger Lear, he said that these things would always take off. So, so I guess nobody's been able to actually get to one yet, right?
Well, I can only use my own self as, my own personal example. And boy, I've had more than my share of it. And I understand that lots of folks out there, I don't care what people say about us. I don't think I ever really have, because again, Chad and I have never set out trying to prove any of this. We're just relaying the information as we understand it, and also trying to relay as we are living it. I can say this, that as far as these objects are concerned, the minute you think you have an understanding of it, forget about it. Because here I'm living proof. I've got this object in my upper arm. You have the x-rays of it, where you can see there's an actual mass there. Yet I had another experience where I'm taken out of bed, put in my backyard, a full-blown encounter that I have complete memory of. And at the very end of that encounter, my wrist exploded in light at the very end of this anomalous encounter. My wrist exploded in light. There was no pain whatsoever involved, yet my wrist literally looked like it had a light bomb go off inside of it. And when I woke up the next morning, I'm back in bed, and I tell Chad, I know I have another object in my wrist. It took quite a while to get some help with that one, because the object in my wrist won't take an x-ray at all. Nothing like the first object. So the second object in the wrist was only able to be detected through ultrasound. And the woman who did the ultrasound said, I couldn't write a report for a doctor on this if I wanted to, because Alta, there's an object there, but whoever or whatever placed it there, placed it where it won't cast a shadow. That can't happen. So, Michael, I'm just saying, it's like pulling another rabbit out of the hat.
Yeah, it sounds like a rabbit being pulled out of the hat. Now, one of our listeners tells me that the alien hunter, I guess he's called, that he has been able to get to implants within people's bodies. So he has some. I'll tell you, it's something like that. I think we can learn a lot from it. So, if that's the case, I'd certainly like to talk to him. Absolutely. But, and then, there's a good majority of people who don't even know that they've been abducted. And, it's, so they could be implanted and have no idea that it's even happened. So I wonder if sometimes when people have these wild dreams, being abducted and things like that, if it's really just not a dream at all. So
Absolutely. Well, the morning that I came to with this first object, Chad discovered that I had these bruises on both my arms, or handprints on both my arms, as if I'd been held from behind by something that had extremely long, only 4-digit hands. That's what the prints left on my arms. Well, they only lasted a day or so, and then they just went away. So, I proof on top of proof on top of proof for us personally, and yet proof for what? It means nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing. I'm the only one that came back out of that experience with an object that we know of, and I'm also the only one that came back with memory. Chad and Jacqueline had none. And in my memory, those two aren't with me. And I'm not on a craft flying around out in the universe like Chad is. And the being that I'm with isn't any of the 4 that he's described being with. So, there's just, to me, it's a big old trickster out there that this is like something pointing and laughing.
So then, do you feel like these beings, whether they're interdimensional or extraterrestrial or whatever they are, do you feel like this is negative or positive?
Jeff's going yes.
Oh, a little of both.
Yeah, that really was a great answer.
Yeah. Now, in my experience, the beings that I were with all felt positive. I was never scared or worried or harmed. In my memory, I was never scared or anything like that.
And in my memory of that night, I was in a state of bliss, like I can't describe, have never been able to find the proper words, until the very end of the encounter. And at the very end of the encounter, I went from this just wonderful state of being to this state of fear, just that quick. And that's how I came out of the experience, in a terrible state of fear. So for me, it's clearly a yes on, like Chad said, yes to both.
Well, that's incredible, and I guess that would make sense, and that's the answer I would expect, because from what I understand, not every ET race is abducting people, and that it's mostly applied to the Greys. I hear it with the Greys a lot. The Greys really get a bad rap, and who knows? I've never met one. Believe me, I've been putting it out there. If you're an ET race, contact me. It's I don't know if I just don't feel like my mind could be played with like that. Now, that's probably naive of me to think that way, but I think that way, and I don't know. I kind of send that challenge out to them, like, come and get me.
Well, good for you. Yeah. Let me leave you with this, Michael. That little dude, that little shape-shifting dude that little wolfy boy we described to you earlier, that was Jacqueline's friend for a moment in her life, Will, Dark Boy. Well, Wolfie Boy, after Jacqueline, goes over to his house, after coming out of that corner by an orb of light, apparently, she never sees him again. She gets out of his house, gets in her car, gets away, and never looks back, right? So now let's fast forward. This happens just in 97. So if we can now fast forward to 2001, Chad and I separated for a few months in our life, and Chad moved to Alabama. I stayed behind, and I'm still in the French Quarter. I'm in New Orleans. I'm walking down the street one afternoon. The streets are busy like they normally are. It's a beautiful, sunny afternoon. I see an old friend I haven't seen forever. The friend has been out of town. He's come back to town. We sit down at a little outdoor cafe to have a drink. He orders a Coke. We just start playing fast catch up. He's very surprised to hear Chad and I had separated. He's sad. We talk about it for a moment, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the conversation shifts from me personally to this guy asked me, he said, "Hey, have you heard about Will?" And I'm like, "Will? Are you talking about Dark Boy? What do you mean, have I heard about him? How do you know him?" I didn't even know that this guy knew him. And anyhow, long story short, the guy says, he says, he's gone around telling everybody that he's got to catch a bus to get out of town because the aliens are after him. Yeah, right. I mean, this is 2001. This is what, I'm not good with math, 5 years after our so-called event off of that corner. And all of a sudden, some guy is popping up in my life that I haven't seen forever, informing me of somebody I didn't even know he knew, informing him that he's got to get out of town because the aliens are after him. So, I don't know, Michael, maybe that challenge will... It might just get you what you're asking for.
Well, yeah, they always say watch what you wish for, but you know what? I've seen the crafts. I've not yet seen the beings. And, hey, if it gives me a heart attack, then oh, so be it. But, yeah, it's time to, I just feel like, I don't know. I always ask people, how come we can't get a picture? It's like I want to just shake their hand and take a picture. But if they're hostile, I don't know, and they're like 4 foot, I just want to put them in a headlock and say, well, now I got you.
Right.
But I don't think it's going to work that way. But,
I tell you, any kind of logic I've tried to apply to any of this, forget about it. Just forget about it.
Yeah. I would have one big rule, and that's none of that mind stuff. I start hearing them talk in my mind, and I ain't going to like that. It's, it's like, I don't know, write it down if you can't talk. It's
actually, that telepathy was in my encounter was quite refreshing, to be quite honest with you. Because with the telepathy, what I've discovered is you just basically, there's no lies. It's a very interesting concept.
Unless, of course, you're a master of it. And, I mean, you never know. Maybe they know a little more than we would, and so maybe they can. Yeah, I guess... I don't know. Like I say, their minds might be advanced where they can, they could lie, but maybe we can't. So I don't know.
That's right. See, that's the issue to me right there. I feel like that says it all. We don't know.
Yeah, we just don't know. And, none of us claim to have all the answers, but that's why we do shows like this, so we can get closer to those answers, hopefully, before we all perish. So, but hey,
really grateful to you for your show, Michael. Just so grateful that you're willing to do this for all of us, and we just can't thank you enough for this.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I'm glad that you both have the courage to get on a show and talk about it. And I'm with you. What other people think, I never worry about that. It's like what my experience. I know it's true. I'll share it if you want to hear it, as what I tell people. But if you don't want to believe it, don't. I don't give a damn.
Right.
And you're the one that goes away still not knowing if the UFOs are real. And I walk away knowing damn well that they are. So
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it certainly has put us in a position to never question again. Not that I ever did in the first place. I didn't think I ever did in the first place, but I'll tell you again, there's just, after that encounter in 95 in Hammond, Louisiana, we just were, whatever is going on here, if you're to know, they're going to make sure you know.
Well,
whatever
I'm hoping and I'm waiting. I want for me, it's already been disclosed, but for the world, apparently no. So let's get the cat out of the bag once and for all, and let's move forward instead of always setting ourselves backwards as a people. So hopefully that's what we'll do. But thank you both so much for your time and for your wonderful experiences and sharing them with us. Thank you.
And to you, Michael, and again, such a huge congratulations to you personally for the new arrival coming. And Chad and I, are just very grateful to you. And Jacqueline, thanks again for having us.
Oh, you betcha. Well, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your week, and try to stay warm wherever you are.
We'll try. We're heading up north next week, so hopefully it'll warm up a little bit for us.
Yeah, you're going to be a little chilled then, probably. I don't know. There might be a little bit of a break in the cold, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Good luck with that, and so thank you guys again. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, have a great night. Okay, everybody, there you have it. Chad and Alta, and we thought we'd bring them back tonight to talk more about their story. And I got to be honest with everybody. I've kind of been a little spacey here tonight because my daughter is giving birth to my granddaughter, and as a father and a grandfather, it's exciting, but at the same time it's concerning. It's it's hard to keep focused, although I do the best I can. And just one more reason why I have such a big mouth and why I get so emotional and so involved with the taking over of our world, not just our country. I mean, I'm concerned about the whole world, but let's face it, we got to clean up our own home before we can go telling anybody else how to run theirs. So let's clean up our country, Americans. Let's get off our asses. Let's quit watching 350 channels and then recording what you can't watch. Sorry, God didn't give you 12 ears and 9 eyes. So you can watch all these different shows. So, I mean, like 350 channels ain't enough. They got to record shows too. So I don't know. When do people get the time to watch all this stuff? I just don't get it. But this is why I do it, folks. This is exactly why I do it. It's not for money. That's for damn sure, because I don't make anything off this. Everything that I get goes back into this show. It goes back into keeping us going. I mean, every penny of it does. I don't buy new shoes. I don't have new clothes. I don't have fancy car. I don't have a fancy house. I don't have any of that stuff. And I don't care to have that. What I do have is I'm still breathing. That's important to me. And that means that I'm still able to have a voice for my little grandbabies who don't have a voice right now. I can still try to do something about that future of theirs that the rest of us are sitting back and just allowing to become cloudy and ugly and not good. And maybe not even there. So this is why we do it. I'm Michael Vera. This is Late Night in the Midlands on the L&M Radio Network. Going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with Stu for Money and Change. A good segment we had, too. So you won't want to miss it. So, and I'll keep you informed. When little Tara enters Earth's atmosphere, I will inform the rest of you. So we'll be back in just a moment, everyone. Don't go anywhere.
L&M Radio has joined with the Hardened Structures team to provide state-of-the-art survival shelter design and build services at L&M Radio exclusive rates. Hardened Structures, with over 21 years experience in military, commercial, and private shelter design build services, are also offering L&M Radio listeners a free consultation, normally a $500 value. So click on the Hardened Structures banner on the home page or the chat and listen page and have peace of mind that no matter what happens, your family is protected.
The L&M Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information, and subscribe today. Information on becoming an L&M subscriber can be found at the top of LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of LateNightInTheMidlands.com and help us help you. You want the truth? Late Night in the Midlands knows you deserve it. That's why we make it easy for you to listen at www.latenightinthe.midlands.com. Go on over, become a member, be informed, and by all means, inform others. Folks, we're not your average radio show. We cover everything. Late Night in the Midlands on the LNM Radio Network. LNM is always looking for sponsors, so if you are interested in sponsorship or advertisement on air or on our website, contact us at mv@latenightinthe.midlands.com. If you're interested in rebroadcasting or picking up the live feed for Late Night in the Midlands, then contact us at mv@latenightinthe.midlands.com and help us help you.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Okay, folks, we are back. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera, and a very happy birthday to Tommy. I didn't forget. I was just waiting, until everybody got their happy birthdays in the chat room. Saying it in the chat's one thing. Being able to give you a shout out on the air, I think that's better for me. So let me say happy birthday to Tommy, who was a regular supporter of the LNM Radio Network. He's been a listener for quite a while now, and he's always in our chat room, and he's part of the LNM family. So happy birthday to you. And we've got Stu coming up here in just a moment. Little Tara has not entered Earth's atmosphere just yet. Apparently still waiting in line on the other side. So apparently she'll be stepping through the wormhole shortly, and so we will continue to wait. But if she's anything like Grandpa, she'll be late to everything, because that's just the way it is. But let's get on with it here. We've got Stu coming on with us, but before we bring him on for Money and Change, this great segment that we do once a week, the website, www.latenightinthe.midlands.com. Become a member. Be informed. And you know what else? Inform others. That's the hard part. Getting other people to listen. But you know what? Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Let them know. If they have an interest, it's like that old love thing. If you love them, let them go. If it's meant to be, they'll come back. I don't know about all that, okay? But that's how it goes with truth, Give them a little truth. If it's meant to be, they'll come back for more. If they don't, Well, then let them go back through the fields. All right, so let's get on with it here. Folks, it is time for Money and Change with our good friend Stu Scheer. Stu, welcome back to Late Night in the Midlands. I know you got some good stuff for us this week.
Hey, Michael, it's great to be back. You know, we've done this thing just about 2 years now.
Yeah.
I think in another week it'll be our anniversary time. So anyhow, it's been a great 2 years. And hopefully we can keep going on with this. And just remember to tell everybody that our website, that's kind of a sister website to latenightinthemidlands.com, is lnminfo2015.weebly.com. And we've got some interesting news on there that they can check out. Anyhow, before we start this thing, we always read a disclaimer. So the information contained in this presented material is from posting of news agencies on the internet and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the owners of this program. We're not responsible for and expressly disclaim all liability for damages of any kind arising out of use, reference to, or reliance on any information contained in this broadcast. The information provided is not offered as financial advice, financial planning, or for investment purposes. So you want to use this information at your own risk. Now, from xe.com, on the currency report, we have the euro is at $1.10. Last week it was $1.13, so it dropped. And that's something to watch in the next few weeks to see if it keeps dropping to a 1-to-1 parity with the U.S. dollar. The Great British Pound dropped 2 cents, actually 3 cents. It was 155 last week. It's 152 now. The Australian dollar stayed the same at 78 cents. The Canadian dollar stayed at 80 cents to the U.S. dollar. The Swiss franc went from $1.05 down to $1.03. The Japanese yen is still at 0.8 cents. And the Chinese yuan is at 15.9 cents to the U.S. dollar. The Kuwaiti dinar is at $3.36. It dropped a penny last week, or from last week. The Vietnamese dong. If you're holding dong, you lost some more money. Actually, well, no, not really. You gained some more money. Last week it was $21,362.95 to the U.S. dollar, and now it's $21,340.96. So a little bit less dong in the wheelbarrow to carry around.
These Asian currencies, they really suck, don't they?
Well, they do. Eventually, Vietnam's going to come out of the doldrums. I've been reading some reports that they're starting to get their industry going again, more industries going in. They're starting to become a world player, let's put it that way. So maybe eventually they might get to maybe, who knows, maybe 5 cents in maybe 10 years to the U.S. dollar. You don't know.
Well, but, I read over on Info Warriors over there that the Chinese were ready to launch their own world currency.
Well, yeah, I read the same thing. And there were even billboards posted over there. And maybe, just maybe, the Chinese yuan might go up in value. But it's artificially held by the government at 15.9 cents. It was at 16 for a long, long time. It dropped down to 15.9. Now, the things I've been reading about China is that they were supposed to have about a 7% growth. That's what they're planning on. But one report came out and said, well, last year it was only 1.7%. So we'll have to see there. So the old saying, figures lie and liars figure. We just have to wait and see what comes out in the wash. Now, if you own Bitcoin, Bitcoin is gathered some steam here. Last week it was 231.25, and now it's 274.96. But given the volatility of the Bitcoin over the last year or so, it's gone all over the place. So it may be going back up, or this just might be a temporary spike. Now, gold last week was $1,203.14 an ounce, and now it's $1,200 $6.32 an ounce. So, if you got a little money and you want to invest it in gold, okay, that's fine and dandy. But just make sure you can feed yourself and pay your bills when you do that. Silver, now last week was $16.48. It's now $16.19 an ounce. And if that's the case, and remember, you're going to pay a little bit more when you go to a silver broker, probably between 2 and 6%. But hey, it's a good time to get silver. And one thing I was reading this last week was that silver's kind of finite. All of the silver in the world is being used in electronics and a lot of other things. So it's getting rarer. And some of the things that are in the dump that contain silver, well, it's in the dump. You're never going to dig it back up again and turn it back into silver ingots. But anyhow, if you have a little bit of money, sure, put it in silver coins. And you can get Canadian Maple Leafs, American Eagles, Austrian Philharmonics, and there are a few others in silver. Just check the purity of the amount of silver that's in the coin. Platinum last week was $11.69.31. It's $11.81.48, so it gained a little bit in wealth there. Palladium also took a little rise. Last week it was $808.34. And now it's $827.62. So that's it on the currency report. And remember, if you want to invest in any precious metals or any foreign currency, you kind of do it at your own risk, because sometimes the currency doesn't go up. Instead, it goes down. Sometimes speculators will get it low, and all of a sudden something will happen. It will go very high, and then they will sell off very quickly to make their money. So beware of that. Speaking of money, Bloomberg had one that was out the other day. Saxo Bank, which is over in Denmark, basically, says it's kept taking franc orders to avoid being sued. And what happened there, in a letter to a Danish regulator, Saxo Bank said it was trying to avoid being sued when it continued accepting Swiss franc orders after the market froze on January 15th. And in a letter that was dated February 9th and obtained by Bloomberg through a FOIA, or Freedom of Information request, Saxo says it was concerned that blocking franc orders and the movements after the Swiss National Bank abandoned its euro cap would leave it open to litigation by clients eager to adjust their positions. And it said some customers could potentially have sought to make Saxo Bank liable for such a decision that under the conditions could have led to significant losses, Saxo said, according to the letter it sent to the Danish Financial Supervisory Authority. And Saxo spokesman Kasper Elbjørn declined to comment on the bank's correspondence with the regulator. And Saxo continued accepting orders, but told clients in emails seen by Bloomberg it would execute their trades at less favorable prices than those initially shown. The bank published a list of those prices some 12 hours later, and the chief financial officer, Steen Blafalk, Blafalk, said in an interview later the same month that Saxo was expecting some clients to sue because of its decision to reprice. Now, Saxo had defended its actions, saying the lack of reliable liquidity after the franc went into a free float gave it no choice but to reprice its trades. And the bank says that even if it had decided to stop accepting franc trade orders, clients would have had access to the market through other channels. And they said that currency isn't traded on a central exchange, so even if Saxo had decided to suspend trade, there would have been a market via other market participants, which Saxo Bank doesn't have an influence on. Now, Switzerland's decision to send its currency into a free float, and we talked about that a few weeks ago. The biggest banks were on the wrong side of the franc trades, and Citigroup and Deutsche Bank and Barclays suffered about $400 million in cumulative trading losses when Switzerland did that. And Saxo Bank said it stands to lose about $107 million, or roughly a third of its equity capital, because of that one move. And in letters to clients, copies of which were sent to the FSA, which is financial services in England, and obtained by Bloomberg, Saxo instructs customers to settle negative cash balances, citing a contract provision that lays out what items the client shall pay to Saxo on demand. So here you have a little clause in the contract that says, hey, if you got a negative balance, you owe us. Well, they didn't want to basically go through the legal channels and be, set up for a lawsuit, but it's still there. So what does that tell us here? Well, what it tells us is read the fine print when you go to a currency broker, or you go to a bank to work in, do a trade in foreign currency, or even to put money into a bank. You want to look at the fine print and all of the fine print. Don't just trust the banker because he's going to be smiling ear to ear, wanting your money to come in. And remember, they get that 9-to-1 lending authority. You give them $1, they can lend out $9 on that $1. I think that policy's wrong. I think it ought to be maybe 1-to-5 or 1-to-4, but not 1-to-9. But always read the fine print, because sometime, you're going to get screwed by the banks. And it's your own fault if you don't read the fine print.
No, it's inevitable.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Once when I was in college, there was a guy going around selling insurance policies, and people didn't read the fine print. And somebody got it and then started to complain and threatened to beat the guy into a pulp. And he says, well, you signed the papers perfectly legal. And he said, yeah, but the deceased have to collect. He said, well, that's not my problem. So here you take out a life insurance policy and you pay the guy $50. And, the deceased has to collect. Well, if you're dead, you can't collect. He just didn't read the fine print. So that's the moral of the story there. Now, this last week, U.S. stocks extended a rally and the dollar reaches an 11-year high, according to Reuters. And U.S. stock prices rose Monday, with the NASDAQ composite reaching the 5,000-point mark in the first time in 15 years. And the dollar hit an 11-year high on expectations the Federal Reserve might raise interest rates later this year. Well, we'll just have to wait and see on that. The Asian stocks ended higher after China cut interest rates over the weekend, and European equity slipped from a 7-year high and hit on merger activity in the telecom sector. So, we had China posted its slowest growth in decades in 2014, and on Saturday cut its benchmark lending and deposit rates. And gold slipped from 2-week highs as investors cashed in gains tied to upbeat Asian demand. So, that's what's going on in the stock market end of it. And the dollar is actually gaining in strength for some reason. And if you remember what I said about the euro was at $1.10. Who knows if it goes to $1 to €1 parity, something is up somewhere. And if you look at the other currencies, if they start going into a parity, something's going to happen. And we just got to keep our eyes and ears open on that thing.
Yeah.
Now, the IRS, the people we love to hate. Well, this is the one that really ticks me off and should tick off just about everybody that hears this broadcast. According to Carolyn May, the IRS again confirms amnesty bonuses, and Senator Grassley is working on a bill to address that problem. And what happened was the Internal Revenue Service is reiterating, it's a tough word today, that illegal immigrants granted Social Security numbers and work permits as a result of President Obama's executive amnesty would be eligible to claim tax credits for up to 3 prior tax years for work they did illegally.
Yeah, I've been griping about this for weeks now, because if you're going to do that, then everybody who's in prison for illegal work, whether it was if they were burglarizing houses, if they were selling dope, whatever they were doing, they were still working illegal. So I guess they're entitled to tax returns too.
Well, I mean, that just reeks. It really does. And,
we can't allow this. We really can't. People better do something. You can't allow this. This is. I mean, I could go off here. I'm gonna try not to. But I mean, it comes down to the bottom line. We can't allow this.
Well, I know that. And, in a recent letter to Senator Chuck Grassley, who's from Iowa, the IRS Commissioner John Koskinen, Koskinen, refers to a hearing last month during which the Iowa Republican pressed the commissioner about the tax implications for those illegal immigrants granted amnesty. And he said, "We have reviewed the relevant statutes and legislative history, and we believe that the 2000 Chief Counsel advice is correct," Koskinen wrote. The CCA concludes that a taxpayer may claim the Earned Income Tax Credit, or the EITC, for a taxable year using a Social Security number, or the SSN, acquired in a later taxable year. Holy cow. Come on. Let's get real, guys. Number one, they're illegal. Whether they're working or not, they're illegal. That's number one.
They're criminals.
Oh, yeah. And number two, the company that hired them is doing so illegally. So that's a violation of law. Okay. So, the feds want to get the tax money, but they also want to pay it back out. And it all goes back to this thing where, and I'm going to pick on liberal Democrats, they want to get as many voters in there as they can possibly get to lock up Democratic senators and other politicians from now on out. And that's one way of doing it.
Well, that's right.
What it does, it really bankrupts everybody. You take a look at California. Here you have a state that has a lot of illegals there. They're sucking up the money that's put into health care because of the burden on health care. They're sucking that up. They're not paying any taxes, and if they are, it's a miracle. Or they're residing in a jail, or they're just sitting out and getting some type of government assistance. We are not the kind of country to give people government assistance all the time. We shouldn't be doing that. Yeah, if they need some foreign aid, we'll give them a little bit of foreign aid. But if you're a non-citizen and you're in the United States illegally, you should get zip. That's nada. That is zilch. Nothing.
Yeah, this country has become a walking mat, and it's disgusting to me, and it embarrasses me to even be a part of this damn nation anymore, because people just don't do anything. They don't care. I mean, you've got criminals who have broken the law, and they're getting rewarded for it. And, for those people who get offended by that, too damn bad. Okay, we've got borders, we've got laws. These laws have been broken, and our money, our dollars are being taken and given to people who have broken the law. Bull crap.
Well, yeah, that's bull crap, all right. And, with the stroke of a pen, the president rewarded those working illegally in the United States with a tax benefit that is designed to encourage low-income individuals to enter the workforce. And given that the IRS is intent on standing by its present interpretation of the eligibility requirements, Grassley was saying he's working on a legislation to uphold an important principle that many of us in Congress support. The tax code shouldn't reward those who broke our immigration laws. Well, guess what? They ought to start enforcing the laws that are there and demand that the president enforce the laws that are there. And if not, then they ought to have the consequences of, number one, either suing the president or going to impeach him for illegal acts. And, that's the way it goes.
This is an open invitation. What they're doing here is an open invitation to every single human being around the planet who's ever wanted to just come into the United States and get rewarded for being here. There you go. I mean, you're basically telling them, come on in, because even if you don't make it for this tax bracket, you'll probably get another one in the next couple of years. So just, keep coming in. We're not gonna, punish you. Try doing this. We should teach them a lesson. Why don't 100 million of us just get together and go barge over the Mexican border? See what happens there.
Mexican prisons are not nice places.
Well, with 100 million of us, I don't know how quickly they'd get us into prisons. But that's my point. I mean, because that's what would happen. You'd wind up in a Mexican prison. They'd supply you with drugs. I understand they do that in the Mexican prison. Whatever they got to do to keep you sheepled down. Here in the United States, they give you 350 channels, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of crazy. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about, the Greek default and the problems that they were having and borrowing money from the IMF and everything. Well, there was a thing by Tyler Durden on Zero Hedge, and he says, as Greek default fears return, government considers borrowing pensions to repay the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Well, we warned about that, and it could happen here. Obama could come in and say, well, we got to pay off our debts and our creditors and so forth. We'll just take over everybody's retirement account. Oh, the government will give you a check. And everybody will get a check from it, but we just need that money to pay off our debts. Well, who got us in that problem to begin with? It's the liberal Democrats and the rhinos, the Republicans in name only. Okay? They got us in that daggone mess. And why should we suffer for the stupidity that they have in Washington? And trust me, there are some good congressmen and there's some bad ones. And I'll tell you what, it's my guess 60% of the congressmen are not doing their job.
Oh, no. I mean, when we talk about Obama and the presidency, it's not just him. It's all Congress, too. Every one of them, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, some have spoke up, but that's all they've done. I mean, it's just not enough. If you sit back and idle and you've watched this happen and you've not done anything to stop it, you're Congress. You're our defense against a tyrant president, and you're on his team. So I think they're just as guilty. We need to wipe it all out, every one of them. And Rand Paul and some of these guys, they talk a good talk. I don't trust any of them anymore.
Well, I mean, considering political parties and so forth, I honestly think we need a third political party. Number one, it would keep both the Republicans and the Democrat more honest. Okay.
The problem is that we would need to wipe out we need to wipe everybody else out of office first, because it would get corrupted. The third party would get as corrupted as the first two parties, because we've got a corrupt influence within government that's just not going to go away unless we get rid of it somehow.
Well, there's a way to do that. You just tack on another amendment, and you basically say that if a congressman or federal official is caught lying, okay, number one, they lose their job. And if they're an elected official, then elections have to be held to fill that spot. And just lay it down at that, and you have to keep them honest that way. And, this latest thing with Hillary Clinton and her private email address, that just came out here this week. And I read somewhere where there was an ambassador that had a private email thing that he ran all of his business through, rather than using the government email, and they fired him when they found out about it. Well, now here, Hillary thinks she's above the law. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. But, what I keep telling people, I don't care if they're Democrats. I don't care if they're Republicans. I don't care if they're independents. I don't care if they're black, white, purple, polka dot, or stripe. If they're caught doing something illegal, bring it to light, put it out there for everybody to see, and if it warrants going to court, going to jail, whatever, then so be it. Okay,
I
to
say
get that stuff out there.
I say we open up. They like their private prisons. Well, let's get a private prison opened up just for government officials. So anybody who's caught in criminal activity while holding office, well, they're sentenced to mandatory 70 years hard labor in prison. Because this is our country, our lives, and our futures they're screwing with. So you set a few examples and you'll see it cleaning up quickly, probably.
Well, put it in the Nevada Proving Grounds.
Yeah.
Just build a little private prison out there in the Nevada Proving Grounds, and you can fly their meals into them daily, and they're frozen when they come out of Kansas City, and by the time they get to wherever they're going, they're cooked.
Yeah.
Okay, so you wouldn't want people hanging around out in Nevada in the Proving Grounds because your dinner would glow in the dark, you would glow in the dark, your surroundings would glow in the dark, but you get the hint, nobody would want to go there.
Oh, yeah, but they don't even get our tax dollars in prison. I mean, they've got to grow their own food. Good luck. Here's some utensils. Here's some Monsanto seeds. Enjoy yourself.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And guess what? Your roommate just grew a foot today, but it's out the side of his head. Anyhow, I read something at Bloomberg said that U.S. companies are stashing $2.1 trillion overseas to avoid taxes. 2.1 trillion. That's with a T. And from Bloomberg, they said that 8 of the biggest U.S. technology companies added a combined $69 billion to their stockpiled offshore profits over the past year, even as some corporations in other industries felt pressure to bring cash back home. Microsoft, Apple, Google, and 5 other tech firms now account for more than a fifth of the $2.10 trillion in profits that U.S. companies are holding overseas, according to Bloomberg News review of the security filings of 304 corporations. And the total amount held outside the U.S. by companies was up 8% from the previous year, though 58 companies reported smaller stockpiles. And the money pile up, reflecting the company's incentives to park profits in low-tax countries, has drawn the attention of Obama and his lawmakers, who see a chance to tap the funds for spending programs and to revamp the tax code. That effort's, right now is stalled in Washington. It'll probably be stalled for quite a while. And it makes no sense to repatriate or pay a substantial tax on it, said Joseph Kennedy, a senior fellow at the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation, a policy research group whose board of directors includes executives from Microsoft and Oracle. And, they say that computing and IT companies especially have a lot of flexibility in where they declare their profits. Well, if you had a corporate tax of 35 to 38%, wouldn't you want to keep your money someplace else?
No, absolutely. I would now if I had money. I would like to keep it somewhere else.
Well, have you ever heard of Duke Energy Corporation?
I have heard of it.
Well, they're based in Charlotte, North Carolina. They took a $373 million tax charge against earnings in February as part of a plan to get access to $2.7 billion in accumulated foreign profits. And Stryker Corporation in Kalamazoo, and they make medical devices, they're planning to repatriate $2 billion this year. And by repatriate, that means bringing it back in the country. Now, when you bring the money back in the country, then it's taxable. As long as it's overseas, you're only subject to the tax overseas. But the biggest one, holy cow, is GE. General Electric Company topped the list for the 5th straight year. The company now has $119 billion outside the U.S., and that's an increase of 8% from the end of 2013 and a 27% gain since 2010. And then by contrast, Microsoft has more than tripled its offshore holdings since 2010. And Apple, which accounts only for part of its non-U.S. holdings, has definitely held offshore, increased that portion to $69.7 billion from $12.3 billion in 2010. So, if I had a company and it was overseas, I really wouldn't want to repatriate that money. But if the corporate tax was reduced to like 10%, even 15%, I consider moving all my operations back into the United States. Number one, it employs local people. Number two, the tax base of the local communities increase. And that would be a boon there. But, the U.S. corporate tax rate is the highest in the world, and that needs to change. That's why we've driven out a lot of industry to foreign countries, because their labor rates are cheaper, number one. Their taxes are cheaper. That's number two. So when you look at those two things, you say, hey, I might as well just invest my stuff overseas.
Well, yeah, because you're in business to make money. I mean, and when the country you're in makes it hard for you to do that, and of course, right now we've got a president who wants to share the wealth. We're sharing it with him, that's for sure. We'll get to that.
Oh, yeah. We're sharing it with them. The final thing that I've got today, Michael, and last week we were talking a little bit, I think it was off the air, about the Obama's spending habits when they take their trips.
Yeah, when they take their trips with our credit cards.
Oh, yeah. According to Ariel Cohen of thedailycaller.com, there was some research done on what they did last year. And the Obamas have spent over $44 million in taxpayer money on travel and vacations. 44 million, and to be exact, $44,351,777.12. And that was last year. Okay. As Americans head off for the long holiday weekend or whatever, you take a look back at the holiday spending. Well, the president vacations a lot.
So we've got people homeless. We've got people starving to death. And this scumbag, this dirtbag, is taking vacations worth $44 million in 1 year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there we go. We're giving illegal immigrants, everything they want, because he's one of them, too. But go ahead.
Well, as of March 2014, Obama spent more time traveling internationally than any other president. And he made 31 trips since assuming office in 2009, and the 111 days spent overseas have cost taxpayers millions of bucks. Presidents have done that. George Bush sent, that's George W.
Oh, he's another one.
Well, yeah, spent 116 days on 28 trips. Bill Clinton spent 113 days on 27 trips, and Ronnie Reagan spent 73 days on just 14 trips.
Well, Clinton, he had less trips because he had everything he wanted under his desk in the White House.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
He sent Hillary on trips. He stood home.
Yeah, that's true. And, of course, poor Monica. Well, anyhow.
Yeah.
We won't go there, but I just figured that, she worked in the White House and she learned to walk after a couple of years. Anyhow, going on with that, here they've spent all this money. And in 2013 alone, President Obama incurred $7,396,531 in flight expenses for his family vacations to Hawaii and Martha's Vineyard, as well as a trip to California to appear on the Jay Leno show.
Oh.
Wow, $7 million. I mean, come on. If we spent something like that, people would be asking a heck of a lot of questions. Like, where did you get your money? Why are you going where you're going? Man, I'll tell you what, these guys go on all these vacations. They ought to have something set up for the president.
Well, look, this dirtbag gets a paycheck. Why don't he, if he's going to take his little trips, I don't know, when I work for a company, that company, will give me vacation time, but they certainly don't pay for my damn vacation. That comes out of my earnings. So, I think look, folks, that's it. He needs to go to jail. He needs to be arrested.
Well, he needs to be investigated and then if found guilty, tried, and convicted, and then take a trip to the Gray Bar Hotel.
And I'm all for getting the paddy wagon and going picking up Bush and Clinton too. So it's not just an Obama thing, but he's the guy who's he's the face of the franchise right now, and this dirtbag's taking our money and going to vineyards in Hawaii. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, well, let's look at it this way, though. You know, the government ought to say, hey, you get personal time off, and you get an accrued time over, let's just say, 1 year. You get 3 weeks off, whether you're president or whatever, you know. You get 3 weeks. That's it. No more than that. You take a trip. Hey, if it's a necessary trip and a very urgent type of trip, okay, the government will pay for it. If it's a trip just to go play golf or go to the Emmys or wherever you want to go, they're not going to pay it. It comes out of your pocket.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Yeah, but it isn't, and that's the problem. Now, hey, over on lnminfo2015.weebly.com, in the hot news section, I've got some stuff there that's worth everybody going to that site and watching the videos. One is on a bioterror weapon that was released in the New Orleans area, had to do with Tulane University. That just came out. So you want to take a look at that. The Fukushima fallout detected in U.S. fish. That's another one that just came out. There was another one that came up, urgent, good time to stock up on food. Yeah. Well, if you haven't started, you got a problem. Then there's also another one I've got in there, 59% of Americans out of work. And it goes into all the statistics for that. So that's on lnminfo2015.weebly.com. And if you need a chuckle, hey, we've got some videos in the humor section, and the Wrinkle City Gazette is back there, and it's the new not April, but the new March edition. So that's there. Other than that, Michael, I don't have anything else this week. Any special thing you want me to look up next week and do research on?
Oh, Stu, you're doing a fantastic job. I think the president's spending addictions, I think, was a good one. Other than that, nothing comes off my mind, right off the bat. So I'll keep in touch with you during the week, and anything comes up. Well, there is one thing, and that is the China wanting to have their own world currency. I guess if that starts making more headlines, you could take a look into that deeper.
Well, we'll take a look at it. You just have to remember that China has two currencies, the yuan or the renminbi, or the RMB, as it's shown sometimes on the charts. They have an inside rate and an outside rate. And it's kind of strange. So we'll look into that more. And I know that they want to become a world currency. That's a fact. They've stated it. But as to how they do it and when they do it, I have a feeling the U.S. dollar is going to have to fall. And then the yuan comes in, or the RMB as they call it. But anyhow, we'll take a look at that. But everybody out there, remember, support Late Night in the Midlands. We shoot straight. We don't tell people a bunch of BS. The information out there is factual. It's there. That's one thing. The people in the chat room, it's a fantastic room to go into. You have to go to the chat room. You can get there on latenightinthemidlands.com, or you can go to lnminfo2015.weebly.com. That's WEEBLY. And you can click on a button there and go right into the chat room. So either way, you can get in and you can chat with some amazing people that are in there. And it becomes a family. But like I've said before, Michael, there are some basic things that everybone needs to do, and daggone it, they better do it now. Number one, pay down your bills. Number two, set some money aside. Number three, start buying food. Food, remember that. Check your prices and get it, because the dock slowdown on the West Coast is going to start causing some problems. You go into your stores, Wally World or other stores, and you look at the shelves. If you start seeing the shelves collect a little dust and nothing's on them, you know that dock strike or the dock slowdown is hurting things. Also, buy your meds. Try to get enough meds, bandages, antibacterial soaps, things of that nature, and your pills or whatever you need, vitamins especially. Stock up on vitamins. You want to stock up on that stuff because eventually something's going to happen. And if it's a crash, there's no ATM working, you need gas, you don't have any money on you, how are you going to do it? Credit cards won't work. So you're going to have to figure that part out. But Michael, that's all I've got. Big hi to the guys in the chat room. And I know you've had some great presenters this past week. Really good. So keep up the good work. We'll talk with you next week.
All right. Thank you, Stu. I appreciate it. Always great having you here. You bring some excellent information to the table and much needed information at that. Folks, we're going to take a really quick break here, then we'll come back and finish up tonight. This is Late Night in the Midlands. You just heard Money and Change with Stu Shear and myself. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The L&M Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information and subscribe today. Information on becoming an L&M subscriber can be found at the top of LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of LateNightInTheMidlands.com and help us help you. You're listening to Late Night in the Midlands on the LNM Radio Network. The call-in number is 347. All right, folks, we are back. This is Late Night in the Midlands, and we want to thank Stu for participating each and every week and bringing us that the information that he does. How do you like that, Obama? $44 million, over $44 million in travel expenses. Are you kidding me? 44. When I'm driving down the road and I'm dodging potholes every damn place, and this guy's spending $44 million either to golf or to go kiss some terrorist's ass. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is the country. This is what everybody wanted, apparently. That's what we're told. That's what we're sold, is that everybody wanted this. So I don't believe that this is what everyone wants. But then again, when I see how everybody just don't give a damn, it seems, well, maybe it is what they want. So then people get what they want, right? So anyways, thank you, Stu, for that great information. And thank you to Chad and Alta for your earlier contribution to tonight's show. And little Tara is taking, I don't blame her. She's taking her time. She doesn't want to come to Earth, and she's probably gotten the message that this place is really sucking right now. So, but nevertheless, eventually she's going to have to come through the portal, if you will, and face up to the Earth reality, if you will. So with that, folks, keep your eyes posted to the sky because you never know what you might see. Keep your ears posted to this broadcast because you never know what you might learn. Tomorrow night, we're back. We've got Alexandra Clare joining us. We're going to be discussing, well, some paranormal, some spiritual kind of things, I guess. So that's tomorrow night, folks. So hey, stay safe, stay warm, and we'll be back with you tomorrow night. Good night, everybody.